What is up, all my dorks, nerds, geeks, and gamers? It's your host, Ghost here, and you're watching a brand new episode of Dorks Movie Minute. This is the first brand new episode of 2022, so I hope you guys are very excited as much as I am. Today we're going to be talking about Spider-Man No Way Home. I did finally get to see the movie, and I will give my thoughts on the movie and some of the different scenes that really stood out to me and really pushed the narrative forward, and some of the things I enjoyed seeing in the movie the most. So to start off, I got to say first off, before I really get into anything, this movie took turns that I didn't see coming. It kind of went down the path I wanted it to go down, but it took a more emotional approach, and it didn't take the big grandiose Avengers-style set pieces and grand battles that I was kind of expecting. We have a bunch of awesome fights in this movie, but a lot of times it's with Tom Holland and these villains, and it's more personal feeling because they're always because he's really trying to help these villains, and it's very kind of personal for them as well. So it translates really well as a villain-hero dynamic to have these five other villains constantly on Tom Holland wanting his help when he really doesn't deserve to give it to him, and at the same time they're not deserved to be saved, so he's not, it's a whole back and forth thing on both character sides. So let's start off with the plot. The plot of this whole movie is these five villains from the Spider-Verse, Sam Raimi's and the Amazing Spider-Man movies, come into Tom Holland's universe because he makes a wish that he hopes that no one remembers who he was as Spider-Man. With the ending of Far From Home revealing that Peter Parker is Spider-Man through Mysterio. So Spider-Man's freaking out. We pick off right off where Far From Home ends. With Zendaya and Tom Holland kind of getting chased around the crowd by everyone knowing who he is now. So then he makes the wish with Doctor Strange. Everything goes awry, and they bring these five villains in from the other universes. I was hoping to see more of the actual the Spider-Man villains from the Tom Holland movies. I would have loved to see Scorpion. I would have loved to seen Vulture come back. I would have loved to seen Shocker or something like that. But no, they stick exclusively to the Sam Raimi and the Amazing Spider-Man villains, and they all work really well here. Alfred Molina is back as Doc Ock. Amazing job at casting. William Dafoe as Green Goblin. You could not have any other Green Goblin other than William Dafoe, so I'm glad he's back as well. And he also does a fantastic job as Green Goblin to step right back into that role and to feel like himself again. Unlike, I'm going to say, Alfred Molina, who I thought was a little bit weak as Doc Ock, but he's still there. Like, there's moments that shine through with Alfred Molina as Doc Ock, but other parts of it seemed a little phone in from his end of the performance, but that's just my opinion. But yeah, these villains want to be saved. They know that if they get sent back to their universe, they're going to die, so it's up to Tom Holland's Spider-Man to save them, find a cure for them, and to so that way they don't go to their universe and die. So it's kind of like he wants to help these villains, but they want to help him as well. They want to help each other, but then they don't. It's a mix and mash. It's a lot of emotions going on through this whole ride. Eventually we get to a scene where Tom Holland does gather all the villains, and he does let them break them out to make a cure for them. And that's when the action of the movie starts. We see his spider senses kick in. Amazing scene. He doesn't know what's going on, but he knows he's surrounded by all these villains, and he knows the spider sense is kicking in. So he's kind of just looking around, dazed and confused, looking at everyone, and all the villains are like, "Why are you looking at me? You think I'm going to do something to you?" Very, very nice tension. A lot of tension, a lot of questions being asked in your mind as a viewer. You're looking at the screen, you're trying to find out who it is, who's setting off the spider senses, and then boom, we get William Dafoe's Green Goblin coming back in full force with the Goblin voice and everything. We then get the attack on Aunt May. And this Green Goblin, I gotta say, is probably the best version that William Dafoe has ever played. There's a scene where he grabs Peter Parker straight up in a wrestler hold, and he says going down, and he just plows him through probably 7 or 8 stories of building, all the way down to the ground floor. We do lose Aunt May in this movie, spoilers, but you guys should already know these Dorks and Movie Minute episodes have spoilers. But Aunt May does end up dying, which leads to Peter basically losing all his drive to want to save these villains. And then once her death happens, it's at the point where Parker's like, okay, I want to kill these people. They deserve to die in their universe because of what they did to this one. So then that's when the other Spider-Man show up in the movie. We get the Amazing Spider-Man, Andrew Garfield. Amazing job, one of the best Spider-Man out of all 3 of them. I believe so. Killed the movie. We also get Tobey Maguire back as Spider-Man. Looks great. They all look just like they did in the old days, their old costumes. Then we also get then that leads to this big battle between the villains and the Spider-Man, with all three of them trying to cure the villains, just like Tom Holland wanted to. Before we get there, they have to make the cures and all this. And there's this great scene of them all three in their science robes, and they're all working on different cures. And Ned's like, "Hey, Peter," and they all go, "Huh?" Very hilarious. The humor between all three Peter Parkers is great. Another scene is they're on the scaffolding to fight these villains on the Statue of Liberty, and that's when Andrew Garfield's Peter is like, "I love you guys," and they're all like, "Thank you so much," and that's like basically all they say. But it's very funny because they actually tie into the Spider-Man mythos in this. Spider-Man has always been like a solo kind of character. He's never really been on a team besides the Avengers. So Tobey and Andrew never being on the Avengers never got that teamwork. So the first time they actually do try to work together, it fails miserably because they're all doing like standard regular hero stuff and they're not really working together. So they're tying each other up in webs and slamming into each other's webs, and very funny stuff. Eventually they do get it. They start curing all these villains one by one. They get cured, and these very touching action scenes. And also there's a lot of little smaller scenes that I'm not going to spoil here, but I definitely highly recommend you check out. With Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man and Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man, they each have their own little scenes with their own villains and stuff that calls back to their own films. So that was cool to see as well. Once again, the day is saved. We get also Doc Ock turning good again towards the end of this movie, kind of foreshadowing his turn in Spider-Man 2. Kind of to reflect that turn of a character. So very cool here. He turns back into a good guy, saves the day, and helps the Spider-Man win the day. Which is the end of the movie. Everyone goes back to their timeline, and then the curse stays for whatever reason that Peter wanted it to stay. He decides not to tell MJ and Ned that he is Peter Parker and that he did exist and all these other things. And he ends up going to his own apartment and kind of sewing his own suit. And we finally get the origins of the comic book version of Spider-Man swinging through New York, building his own suits, doing his own thing, making his own gadgets, and having really no one to really lean on besides himself. And that's kind of one of the things that made Spider-Man as a character really great, or Peter Parker as a character, was that he was a hero on his own. He really, a lot like Batman, he really didn't rely on any others to get to where he needed to be. So it's cool to see them take that route in this Spider-Man No Way Home final movie for Tom Holland in this first trilogy. I cannot wait to see where they take a fourth, fifth, or sixth movie. I cannot wait to see what villains they throw in the mix as well. But for a multiverse movie, they did a great job, phenomenal job bringing Tobey and Andrew in. I wish it was a little bit more focused on the multiverse aspect of it, but unfortunately, the multiverse aspect is probably only 20-25% of the movie. I mean, I get it, the villains are all multiverse villains, I get that as well, but they integrate so well into the MCU and with Tom Holland's world that you forget that these are villains from the Amazing Spider-Man and Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man movies. So yeah, the overall very good movie. I enjoyed it 100%. I give this one a 10 out of 10. Very solid movie. The emotion was really good. That's what really drove the movie through for me. When Peter's mad, you feel it. When Peter's sad, you feel it. When he's getting beat up, you feel it. It's just, you feel this whole movie all the way through, and it's a love letter to everything Spider-Man, not just Tom Holland, but everything Spider-Man with Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield as well. And to see these three kind of films come together and have a conclusion, not just for Tom Holland's, but a conclusion for Tobey and Andrew Garfield's all at the same time. It works 100% well, and I loved it very much. Some of the things I wish to have seen in this movie would have been Miles Morales. I think it would have been a perfect opportunity to introduce him here. But we did get to see Feast, so that is a good jumping off point in the future if they ever do want to bring Miles in. But yeah, 10 out of 10 movie. Definitely enjoyed this. Let me know down below what you guys thought of Spider-Man Far From Home. Did you enjoy it as much as I did or not? And if you did, let me know why you did down below. And if you didn't, let me know why you didn't down below. So until next time, guys, I've been your host, Ghost. Make sure you like, subscribe, or share. And as always, keep it right here on Dorkston. Adios.